I kind of like the idea of inhabiting things that I make in some way. I guess what interested me about Cambridge most was, its position in the history of computing. Specifically, I was thinking about Alan Turing, who's someone I've always been very interested in, and also a mathematician called John Conway, who invented something called the game of life. So I started thinking about a way of making a sculpture of an equation, but not just a static sculpture, a kind of computational sculpture or sculptural machine that would not just be a kind of visual representation, but would compute in some way. When you look at Supercomputer from the front, you see 8 kind of rectangular panels. Those are the computational units. And then at the back you have 5 cells, which are like the bits or the ones or zeros of the system. And right at the front, in the center, raised up is, well, if you're going to make a literal analogy of the computer, it's the central processing unit. It's like the brain that coordinates everything. What happens is that every 4 or 5 minutes a cycle is completed and then starts again. The basis of it is that each bit or cell looks at itself and its neighbours, and depending on what states they're in, whether they're 1 or 0 or alive or dead or off or on, decides what state it'll be in the next iteration. So those 8 panels along the front kind of dictate which of those possible combinations you're testing for. And if one is true, then a ball bearing will find its way right through the system and hit one of the notes on the xylophone and go ding. So over the course of a day, you accrue a kind of very minimal score. You could then sit down and play all the outputs. I like the idea that its operation is dependent on a human. Too often now, I think humans, we get dependent on the technology. I'm always trying to avoid that. So there is that performative aspect to it, which sometimes I play very seriously and sometimes not. The thing that people say most is, oh, I've walked past this like every day, and I've always wondered what it is, or I've always wanted to see it working. But with an enthusiasm and an interest and a kind of pleasure in finally sort of getting to the nub of maybe what it is.